What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and today it's episode 2 of Wrasslin Rants. Today I'm joined by Mr. Hoodini. Make sure you all check him out on Instagram, show him some support. I'll put his Instagram page on screen, and just before this video starts, the Rant Show, ladies and gentlemen, now has a brand new social media page. Yes, make sure you head over to the Rant Show's Instagram page for future updates, news, and videos coming out on the channel. But let's not waste any more time, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and I'll talk to you all later. What is up, Houdini? Welcome to the Rant Show. Glad you can be here today, and happy you can join me on this journey where we just dive into some of the most interesting things in the world of professional wrestling. First thing I want to bring up to you right now, I want to talk about Vince McMahon, the owner and creator of WWE. He's been chairman for many, many years now, and I just want to hear, there's been some controversy over the last couple of years. He's been in controversy pretty much like outside of WWE for a long time right now. But the first thing I just want to bring up to you about Vince McMahon, what did you think about Vince McMahon when all the releases were happening? So, you remember, I think it was early 2020, where he released, I think, 40 wrestlers. Tell me what you think about all the releases.
As for the releases, I really don't believe that was him. Everybody says, oh, Vince McMahon fired me, Vince McMahon. That's what everybody's always saying. But I don't really think it was him. It wasn't really his choice. Even though he may be the chairman, there's still people below him that make decisions. So, with that being said, I truly do not think the releases are Vince McMahon's choice, on his own.
And that's one of the problems, everyone always turns and points their finger at the one guy. Because hey, this man didn't push me, or put me over in this match, or didn't give me these opportunities. Look, if he didn't give you those opportunities, that means you underperformed and you didn't reach what you could have reached. You didn't reach your potential that you had. And that was just going to bring me, because this reminded me of a superstar there that was complaining when she got released from WWE a little bit now. But she's in more heat right now, and it's horrible. But I want to hear what you think right now. I want to hear what you think about Nia Jax.
Oh, God, Nia Jax, man. What is there to say that hasn't been said? She was pushed and pushed and pushed, but she underperformed every single time. And obviously, she's infamous for her botches and injuries towards other performers. So I really don't believe she should be complaining. I really do believe she brought her firing upon herself. And, I don't see why she would, blame anybody for, firing her. It's kind of her own fault. And I don't even want to get into the controversial stuff that she's said.
I mean, yeah, there's already a shit ton of heat on her name right now after her recent words on Twitter about what's going on in the world right now. But this is the world of wrestling we're talking about, and we're gonna try and leave that there and not get into it. She's already under fire. Let's not add more fuel to the flame. She's already getting grilled, bro. But let's get back to Vince McMahon though. Vince McMahon. When I started watching wrestling, Vince McMahon was I hated him. He always when I was a kid, he always screwed Cena out matches. I remember watching the Elimination Chamber and Cena made Triple H tap out. I was so happy as a kid. I was like, oh, you can't see me? Cena won, he's the world champion again. And then, oh, it's Vince McMahon, this can't be good. Hey, Cena, Batista. Can you tell me, what was your favourite memory as a kid or any time of Vince McMahon though?
My favorite childhood memory of Vince McMahon has to be the contract signing with CM Punk. Just probably one of the funniest segments overall that I've seen. But it, to me, rewatching it now, because, as a kid, it's just haha, he's beating up his boss. But, now going back and watching it, there's a sense of realism to it. If knowing the story behind it. And so I really think that segment holds up well to this day due to the comedy of it as well as the sense of realism in it.
I can understand that because obviously Punk and Vince, or Punk and WWE even, it's a hot topic and there's always been heat there, controversy over the years. since Punk left and since Punk joined AEW, they're still there. He still doesn't like it there. He still doesn't like them there. And that kind of plays that role of why, yeah, that segment feels more real and like entertaining as hell. Like, I think both Vince and Punk did that very well. Despite the hatred for each other, they have good chemistry when it's them two together. Since you mentioned there, let's dive on in on CM Punk. What would you say his AEW run since he's came back after leaving WWE has been a success, or do you think it has been like a flop or hasn't lived up to the hype?
I really believe that the run so far, at least, has been a success, especially with his current feud with MJF. I believe a smashing success. The debut really was just incredible. Like, as a fan for like years, just waiting and waiting. It's like, oh, CM Punk this, CM Punk that, and he finally came up. It's crazy, man. Like, I would say though it did start a little rough, but I feel like the MJF feud currently that he's having is just prime. Probably one of the best feuds I've ever seen CM Punk be in. Like, it's great.
So you're telling me that Punk and MJF, that's Punk's best feud? I mean, let me just bring up some of his feuds. Punk and Hardy, Jeff Hardy that is. Punk and Cena, which was probably my favourite actually. Then of course we can't forget Punk and Kevin Nash, which shortly changed to Punk and Triple H. Then we got Punk and Taker. Then the infamous Punk versus The Shield. I mean, it's not a bad show, I guess. Like, don't get me wrong, it's been brilliant. That kid in me is always going to say that the Cena and Punk feud was probably his best one. Maybe with Cena as well. Strong maybe there. But I gotta say as well, it's been good work from both men in AEW. Their feud has been top notch and probably feud of the year in my opinion. Here's another thing I wanted to mention about Punk to you. Like, do you think the decision for CM Punk to lose the title, if you remember this now, we're going way back here, The Rock versus CM Punk at the Royal Rumble 2013, do you think it was the right decision to give the title to The Rock just to drop it at Mania to Cena? Or would you preferred to see Punk go over on The Rock, which would be tremendous for his career? Then he goes on to Mania in the main event that he wanted for so long. Then he would face Cena to end their long feud that they've been feuding for a long time. Tell me, like, do you think that would have been a great idea, or do you think they made the right call by making him drop the title to The Rock, which was still okay because he ended up having a match with Taker? But what do you think?
Well, I don't believe that is the best feud. I apologize if I said that was the best feud. I do think its best feud was with John Cena, because that was, my whole childhood. But as for dropping the belt to The Rock, I do think that was the wrong decision. I feel like it was a decision made purely out of money, which I do understand why they would have made that decision. But I feel like, just not to sound like an entitled fan, but I feel like for the fans, CM Punk should have went over The Rock and had his, his most wanted, WrestleMania match that he really did want. I think that would have been the right decision, at least at the time.
I mean, you remember the day 434 days of WWE champion, and it all got thrown away to, like you said, the money fight, the main event of Mania for Rock and Cena too, which the previous Mania they advertised as once in a lifetime, which kind of gave that match less meaning now. But like, even if you remember, if you go back to 2013's Royal Rumble, when when the Shield actually, they triple powerbombed The Rock through a table, and Punk threw him in the ring and went for the cover, 1, 2, 3. The crowd didn't go silent. The crowd didn't boo. The crowd actually cheered. The crowd were happy. They knew The Rock got screwed, and the crowd are happy. So that kind of says that me and you are thinking the same here. That I think as well that Punk should have defeated The Rock at the Royal Rumble. I'm gonna test the waters here and see if we can get a little bit of a disagreement going on. Now, you remember after that, Punk lost the title to The Rock. Then he got his rematch at Chamber. He lost to The Rock again. Then he had another final chance versus Cena on Raw, lost to Cena again. Punk was done. Taker comes out. Then Punk decides to have a feud with Taker, and you remember their match, awesome match. I highly recommend anyone who's not seen it go back and watch CM Punk and The Undertaker, WrestleMania 29. I want to know, like, I love Taker, and if I'd known like the next couple of manias that the streak could have ended, if it was my way and I had like the booking, and this is not me trying to be like favorite or biased here, it might sound wrong, but either I would have given it to Roman Reigns, obviously years later, or I would even let. This is shocking here now for me. I would be happy if CM Punk ended the streak at WrestleMania 29. Do you agree with me on that one, or do you think it was right for Taker to beat Punk, then the following years lose to Brock, then get a few wins under his belt and lose to Roman?
Exactly. But I do understand from a business standpoint why they would make that decision, even though it was the second match, once in a lifetime again, or however they advertised it. It doesn't really work the second time, so I guess they had to add stakes to it, which I do understand. But I still do believe that it should have the belt should have stayed on Punk, and I'll stand by that wholeheartedly. You raise a really good point for CM Punk and for Roman, but I believe if we erased Brock and Roman beating Undertaker at Mania, I feel like if they did the exact same thing as the Boneyard match, with like, oh, the streak is, still going on, I feel like that would be the perfect ending to his career, just with like the mythical status of, oh, hey, 37 WrestleMania wins, 36 WrestleMania wins in a row, never lost at WrestleMania. I feel like that would have maybe been the best choice, but I still do think wrestling would not be the same as it was today if Brock did not win that night. It just shocked the world, and I do believe it was an okay decision at the time.
Like, talking about the streak is one of the things in wrestling that really tears the fans apart, because like, we all don't know if it's the right decision or it's amazing or it's the worst decision. What are we doing? It's like, people look at it as, that's 21 years down the drain of work to give it to a guy who's probably going to retire in the next 10 years. If you look kind of now, all these years later since the streak, Brock is still wrestling a full-time schedule and is the world champion right now. So maybe it kind of was worth it if you kind of think about it that way, but you kind of understand the fans' points if they're like, oh no, that was terrible. Because I remember waking up that following Monday morning and looking on my phone on Instagram trending. I was like, Brock ended the streak, what? Look at the video before I go to school. I seen the referee count to 3 and my heart stopped. I was frozen, bro. I mean, like, me personally, if it was me and I was like the booker for all these Mania matches, there's just so many people I would have picked to end the streak rather than Brock, even Roman, maybe Punk, if he did it. One of the things that I think would have been perfect, but he didn't need it, so that's why I'm not arguing with it. WrestleMania 28, the Hell in a Cell match with Triple H. WrestleMania 25, which is, everyone says, probably the greatest wrestling match ever between him and Shawn Michaels in their first bout. But like you just said there, I will agree, if Brock didn't do that, then I think WWE would be very different from what it would be if Taker did win. Which brings me on to my next point. We have all this talk about Punk's run in AEW, then Vince and Taker. So we're gonna rewind a little bit. We're gonna go back in on what we said earlier with the feud between Punk and MJF. Let's talk about MJF real quick. Me, as a WWE fan, hand on my heart, I can honestly say to God, MJF is a great heel. He is amazing. He knows what he's doing. That dude, I have nothing but the utmost respect for him. I think when it comes to, like, as he said, the bidding war in 2024, Tony, give him all your money if you have to. Do not let him leave for WWE. Not saying that he won't do bad or good in WWE, but for Tony and AEW's sake, if I was them, I'd want to keep MJF. Let me know your first opinion when you first saw MJF on television.
When I first saw MJF on television, I was already aware. I've seen him before. I was happy. I was happy to see him on television, despite being this huge super heel, just 24/7 all around. I'm just happy to see him. I was happy to see him get any television time at all. I think he plays the heel perfectly. Like, he does the whole classic. He lives the gimmick, and nobody knows for sure if that's really him or not. And I think that's really why MJF is such a good, not just a wrestler, but like, I wouldn't say a gimmick, but like a character, because nobody knows if it's really him or not. And I really, really think he's the future wrestling. And with him in the position that he is in currently, he only has even more room to just keep going and going and growing as a wrestler. If he went to WWE, he would do great. But I agree with what you say that Tony Khan should just spend as much money as he could to keep MJF there, because I feel like MJF is one of the pillars of AEW, and I believe one day, soon enough actually, MJF will be the face of AEW, and you can quote me on that.
Yeah, I agree with you on all of that right there. Like, MJF definitely 100% a pillar of AEW. And, seeing him, if he ever does go, then that would be a major shock to Tony and AEW. Especially for like one of your main guys who's been kind of the big name in your company for a long time. And I will quote you on that. I'll get back to you on the day MJF lifts the world title. Bring it up there because considering we are just a few hours, not too long now from as we speak while we're recording, from the first major AEW superstar to leave for the rival company, WWE. If it does come true though, that's it though, because many people think it's a work. Considering people are saying Cody Rhodes is going to be appearing on Raw tonight as we speak, who else do you think from AEW would leave and jump ship for WWE?
That is a really good question. And, I think the only plausible one, in my opinion, would be Chris Jericho. But, like, I don't think he would do a full, like, run back, because he showed up on the Broken Skull sessions. I think Jericho at most, like off the top of my head, just first thing I think of is Jericho. I think he would show up at like the Royal Rumble and he would have like a few matches and then he would just go back to whatever he does, because he's Chris Jericho. He has like 1,000 things that he does. And speaking of Cody Rhodes, personally, I believe that whole situation is a work, because I don't think Cody Rhodes would just go and build a brand new competition company and just after 2 years leave, go back to the place that he left, and when like really made his career what it is today. So I personally do not believe that Cody Rhodes will show up on Monday Night Raw. That is, I can set that in stone.
The thing with Cody, which is a small part of me, is telling me that it's not a work, because I think Drew McIntyre said it best, that he believes is real, and he believes Cody has the same mindset as Drew did when Drew got fired and he left for a few years to be Drew Galloway in Impact. He feels that Cody also feels what Drew felt, which is he has something to prove. It's like he had to do what Drew did, and like go away for a little bit, build yourself up, get in great shape, make your name even bigger, then come back and just dominate. So maybe Cody has that image because when he left, he was like Stardust. I mean, come on. And over the last few years, he built himself to be the American Nightmare. And if you remember, even Dusty Rhodes live on SmackDown years ago told Cody to his face that he has the potential to be Shawn Michaels even in the ring, and I stand by that with him. A small part of me, I'm trying not to get hyped on it, because I said in my last video I'd be open arms with Cody coming back, but if it is a work, then fair enough for getting all this hype. But if it's not, then I think Cody will have a great run, and I will say this in cement, that I believe Cody will be a world champion this year or next year in WWE.
You know, I do have to agree with you with the statement. You know, Cody Rhodes, no matter where he'll go, he will become world champion wherever he may go. And for it being a work, which I do believe to be most likely, I will have to say, you know, as for WWE, if they don't do it very, very soon, I really, really think it will just not happen. And I think he'll go right back to AEW and maybe be able to win the title again. Who knows?
You know, honest to God, I think we're gonna either see Cody Rhodes next week on Raw, the following week on Raw, or even a call out at Mania, and Cody comes out in front of the Dallas crowd. But I think as it stands right now, I think I'm sold, bro. I think I'm sold that Cody's coming back to WWE. The teasers and the tweets, the references on the live shows, you know, I think Cody is coming back to WWE, and I feel like, obviously for the obvious reason, he's gonna fight Seth Rollins at Mania, which, for me, I think that's an incredible match, an incredible debut. Both guys highly fucking talented, so if that match happens, hopefully on WrestleMania Saturday, because Sunday looks fucking stacked and booked in my opinion, and Saturday needs all. I'm pretty hyped if that match happens. So for me, I think Cody Rhodes is coming to WWE, and this kind of reminded me, was after one of his last great feuds, in my opinion, when he was in WWE. If you remember the Rose Brothers versus the Shield, it's like it was just reminding me there. It's like that feud was awesome, by the way. But I just wanted to go back and talk about the Shield real quick, you know. One of the most hottest topics in wrestling, arguably in my opinion the greatest faction ever in wrestling, and three of the most talented wrestlers right now, all three of them doing something incredible right now, like Mox in AEW, then Roman being the tribal chief, and Rollins being the visionary, about to have a match with Cody Rhodes at Mania. So we're going to talk a little bit for now with the Shield, and the first thing I wanted to bring up to you about the Shield: do you think it should have been Seth to break up the group, or do you think it should have been another member of the group to break it up back in 2014?
You know, I gotta agree with you for the part about Cody, because it does make sense with all the teasers and stuff. I have to agree with you fully. But as for the Shield, you know, I agree with you wholeheartedly. You know, one of the greatest factions of all time. Incredible workers, incredible wrestlers. Love what they're all doing now. For the thing with Seth breaking up the Shield, I think they executed it perfectly, and I believe it was the best choice. But I will say, if they made Dean Ambrose break up the Shield, it would have also worked to the same effect, in my opinion. I think the only person it would have worked with was Roman Reigns. And I'm not dissing Roman Reigns, because he's probably doing some of the best heel work I've seen, you know, in WWE in the past couple of years. But I feel like at the time, you know, it would not have worked to the degree it worked with Seth, or potentially it would have worked with Dean. I think the way Seth's run went as a heel, you know, with the authority on that, I think it was great, you know. But to the degree of Roman's career at the time and how it led to him being the super babyface of WWE for a few years, I think it would not work at all.
I've always been a fan of Seth, even when he was like in NXT, and like when the Shield first came around, and they reunited and split off, and reunited, split off, reunited. The Shield, as I said earlier, one of the greatest factions ever. Their undefeated run, which was, I think, in my opinion, great, I was kind of annoyed when I saw it then, to be honest. I wish it went on a little bit longer. And I was just gonna ask, like, do you think they should have went on a little bit longer before splitting up the group, because they were just fresh out of a rivalry from Evolution? Or do you think it was like the perfect moment, perfect time to split up and end things?
I think it was the perfect time to end it, just due to the storyline. Just, you know, but the genius of Triple H as a character was he was this huge manipulator that had power. And, you know, nobody thought the Shield were going to split up, and they did it, you know, right after the Shield won. And the one person they thought would not betray the Shield did. So I think it was the perfect time to do it. I think it was a genius move, not only by like the writing team, but I think it was the perfect move, and that's the best way I can put it.
I love the Shield, and maybe one day, I highly doubt it will ever happen, if they did reunite and come back for one more match. If they ever did, like, who would you say if the Shield, if Moxley ever came back, or if Seth and Roman ever decided to leave and go to AEW, who are like a faction or three men you want to see the Shield go up against or have a little rivalry with? Like, this is at the top of your head, or even answer that one, then also say like a dream faction or a dream match you wish the Shield would have had.
You know, this is gonna sound really, really weird, but you said first thing that popped in my head, first faction that popped in my head was the New Day. And I love me some New Day. And that match would be fire no matter what. So, you know, personally, I believe, regardless of storyline, just match-wise, the New Day would be perfect. But if they're wanting, like, a deep storyline match, you know, I would have to say, you know, the Elite of Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. That match would also be fire. But very first thing I thought of was the New Day.
Might have to refresh your memory here a little bit. The Shield and the New Day have already had a match, remember? That Survivor Series. I forget which one it was. It's kind of a while back now. I think it was 2017, I'm going to guess. I think it was 2017. The Shield already had a match, or 2018. The Shield and the New Day had an incredible match, like you said there. If you did not know, the match was incredible. The Shield came out victorious. But if you didn't know that, can you name another team inside WWE, dead or alive, retired or unretired, that you would love to see the Shield go up against? And again, the Elite, I think that's perfect because the chemistry there on both teams and the star power on both teams.
I completely forgot about that match happening, you know, but not to stay in WWE and have it be a trios match. I think this one you might have even forgot is a possibility. You know, the Shield versus the Legacy. You know, Randy Orton, Ted DiBiase Jr., Cody Rhodes. That match would be heat. Like, pure fire. I think nobody else would say that. Like, as like an option for the team. I believe I would be the only person to say the Legacy.
I agree that many people will not say, because I'd say many people kind of forgot about Legacy. When I was growing up, Legacy was around, but, you know, I wasn't the biggest fan of them because Randy Orton being the heel, he was playing that role very well. I was not liking him. I was annoyed that he was winning the title multiple times and beating up John Cena. But the Legacy, that's not a bad show. Like, Cody, since he is coming back, he'll be in the same company as Orton, and I think Ted DiBiase's retired. But imagine if all three of them got back together and they did have a match with Seth and Roman, which of course, I know I'm only speaking hypothetically here, which will never happen because of the situation with Mox and all that. I think that would be an incredible match. Like, as of now, all three of them, I think that would be fire. Who would you think would win that match, is the question.
Oh, I think the Shield would win 100%. Like, nothing against, you know, Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes, but I feel like in this situation, the Shield would be the bigger draw. And, you know, the way WWE would do it would be the Shield won. Like, I feel like they could even have, like, a series that would end at WrestleMania and the Shield would still win. Like, I feel like it would be, like, a trade wins type of feud. And they do singles matches and just tag matches. And they end at WrestleMania with, a trio tag match. And the Shield would ultimately win.
I forgot I even asked this question. Who is your favorite member of the Shield, by the way?
You know, for my favorite member, most people would say Seth or Roman. But personally, for me, Dean Ambrose was my favorite part of the Shield. I don't know why, when I was a kid, you know, he resonated with me. I don't know why I liked him so much. I just thought he was cool. And I think mainly it was the rebound lariat, if you know that move. I love that freaking move, man. But now, like, looking back, I think just out of all of the Shield, his character was, like, the most interesting, you know?
So on that note, before the episode closes, I want to let everyone know at home there will be a part 2 to this with Houdini. And just on this note, since we're talking about right now, between the Shield, what was your favorite match that you recall of the Shield?
You know, that's a really, really good question. That's a really hard question to answer, too, because, you know, the Shield has such good matches with pretty much anybody. There wasn't really a bad match. I'd say most memorable to me was with Evolution, and I think that match was just great, and it holds up really, really good to today. And the reason I say that match, not only because of how good of a match it actually was, it led And I know how bad this seems. It led to the breakup of the Shield, which was really, really an awesome moment in my eyes, at least just for wrestling in general. So I think that match, which led to one of the most iconic moments, I'd say, in WWE history, has to be said is probably one of their best matches.
And on that note, I want to thank Houdini. I want to thank you for coming on today's episode. And I'm sure the next episode, part 2, is going to be just as good as this one. And I hope everyone at home enjoyed this episode. And anything you want to say to the people at home, Houdini?
I just want to say thank you for having me on the show. I can't wait to come back for part 2, and I hope everybody watching at home enjoys this and will enjoy part 2.
And that'll do it for today's episode. I'd like to thank Houdini for coming on today's episode. And like I said there will be a part 2 with Houdini coming out soon. Don't forget to check him out on Instagram and show some support to him. And also check out the Rant Show on Instagram for news and updates on the channel. Once again, thank you Houdini for coming on today. I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. And I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.
Do you remember?